All right, good evening, everyone out there in YouTube land. How are we doing? We are back here again, almost mediocre sports guys. I am Anthony. This is Mike. Back to get some more sports talks in with you. We were off a little bit here for a few weeks. Part of it, I was sick too myself. Finally getting over this cold, I guess, whatever it was. I don't know, something crazy. It hit me pretty good though. So back to my
Hopefully feeling better, bud. Hopefully feeling
definitely starting to get back to my old self now, which is great. Try to get back into some more sports talk and this and that too. But Mike had something that he would like to start the show off talking to everybody with as to the other reason why we were off a few here for the podcast here. So I'm going to kind of turn this over to Mike and let him explain everything going on here.
Ladies and gentlemen, obviously as Anthony mentioned last week, we took a break, from our normal Saturday podcast. And I think the week before I had mentioned, that my dad was experiencing some health issues and we were as a family trying to deal with some of those things. And again, we were supposed to broadcast last Saturday, but unfortunately, the Thursday prior to that, things didn't exactly go as I expected. And unfortunately, my dad passed away. He had spent about 2 weeks in the hospital dealing with a variety of health issues. We actually thought that he was beginning to make some progress and everything looked to be on the upswing, and they were talking about transferring him to a rehab unit, but a couple days prior to, again, what Anthony had planned on doing with the podcast, things obviously just, I guess, essentially spiraled out of control, and my dad just, he passed away. But what I really want to utilize for just a couple minutes, folks, is just to sort of pay a tribute to my dad. Anthony had the pleasure of meeting my dad, at least on a couple of occasions. But my dad was just, he was an individual that was all about character. Character was important to him, being true to yourself, being honest. He always adhered to the old adage that do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because that's all he expected. He was a simple guy by nature. He didn't ask for much. He didn't expect much, and that was part of what was special about him, I guess. He was 20 years military in the Army, and he transitioned from that to an additional 27 years as head of security at the Museum of Natural History in the city that he resided in, and those were two things that he took a lot of pride in. He was a photographer. That was his passion. That was his hobby. Ansel Adams was his man, so to speak, in the world of photography. He just really looked up to him and aspired to be just like him. Fan of photography, a fan of nature, just photographing it, being a part of it, camping, those type of things. Um, and I was fortunate enough to experience some of those things with him. Uh, he wasn't always open about all the things that he enjoyed and some of the things that concerned him in life, but occasionally we had conversations that at least allowed me somewhat of a little bit of insight as to what he was about and who he was as a person. Um, and I'm grateful for those moments. I guess what I truly hope is if I'm fortunate in the rest of my life, if I always aspired to be a lot like my dad. Uh, he was just a person I looked up to. I respected him as a man, as a person. I respected him as a dad. And I always thought, if I could be half the person that he proved to be in his lifetime, if I could be half that person, I'd be pretty fortunate. Uh, I was blessed to call him my dad. I was blessed to call him my friend. And I cannot thank him enough for all the lessons that he either taught me or attempted to show me, for the values that he helped instill in me, um, and the advice that he attempted to give me. And I'm grateful for those times I chose to listen because he was usually spot on. But I wanted to take this moment just to say thank you, Dad. Um, I know you're at peace now, and I thank God for blessing you to me, and hopefully someday, I'll see you down the road. But um, thank you so much for everything you did for me, and I love you to death, and I salute you. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah,
All right, let's do some
let's
sports.
get in there. Yeah, that's great, Mike, and you know, my condolences definitely out to you and everybody out there, to you
Appreciate it, sir.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Like Mike said, I mean, he hit everything on the nail with that. It was his dad was a tremendous person. Just fun to be around. He was always happy. Every time I see him, when I was young, go over there to his house where they used to live, and you'd walk right in, and his dad had his own chair sitting right there in front of the TV. I'd be right in front of the TV, and he'd sit there every single time when he come in. So just great memories, Mike, for sure, that you'll have with for him. I know growing up with him, stuff you guys did a lot. So tons of memories that you'll have for sure.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Grateful,
All
sir.
right, so we're gonna move into what we would. If you guys remember last time, we had our kind of we called beefs of the weeks type of stuff, things that just kind of rubbed us the wrong way a little bit. I guess you could say there, huh, Mike? I mean, it might be a little bit more than this because
Slightly.
what we're going into
Slightly.
talking about is good old Tiger Woods. I'm going to kind of let Mike go ahead and explain a little bit more here, but obviously he is in the what's the tournament again, Mike? Remind me. The Genesis tournament, is that correct? Is that what it's called that's going on right now?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so we got.
Where unless things have changed greatly since I last checked, and I can't give you the leaderboard, but I do know the person at the top of the leaderboard is 14 under. Tiger Woods, surprisingly, 3 under. So you and I both know no one is going to make up 11 shots on the last day of the
Yeah, so
tournament.
it is Joe Rom who is, and I believe he actually finished 15 under. He shot a 65 today,
All
so
right.
he's 15 under. So yeah, he does have to kind of make up a little bit more than that.
So
But
Tiger may be 12 shots
so,
back now.
so I think so. What I'm trying to get out of this, Mike, is it's just bugging you. Is it bugging you that he's still playing, or is it just bugging you that he's still getting the kind of publicity that he gets while he's out there? What's kind of going on with this?
There you go, bud. There you go. There you go. First and foremost, to all the golfing nation, to all the networks that just apparently love Tiger Woods to death and can't seem to get enough of him, seem to apparently believe that he is golf savior, even at just turned 47 years of age. But folks, you got to stop. You got to stop this. This is absolutely asinine. I'm sorry. It's just absolutely stupid to continue to put this person on this podium, this platform that you seem to do tournament in, tournament out, year in, year out. And back to your point, but it's not so much. And again, like I said, to all the golfing community, hey, is Tiger potentially the greatest golfer in the history of the game? I'd be the first to probably say and acknowledge, yes, he probably is. You can't take away. I'm not going to sit here. We couldn't sit. We'd spend the entire podcast talking about his
Well,
accomplishments. I
I mean,
get
yeah,
that.
I mean, he has 82 PGA Tour wins and 15 majors in a 24-year
Yeah,
span, which is insane. I mean, he has more
yeah,
PGA Tour wins than Jack Nicklaus, but but obviously Nicklaus has more majors than him, being as Nicklaus had 18 rather than the 15. But yeah, I mean, obviously,
yeah,
either between those two, you're talking, that's kind of like LeBron and Jordan type debate there between the two, between Jack
yeah.
and Tiger there.
And he has 110 career
Mm-hmm.
wins,
Yeah.
overall. I mean, and I get that. That's fantastic. That's phenomenal. Like I said, I was a huge fan of Tiger Woods. I really was growing up. I mean, he was must golf CTV. I mean, that's what this dude was. I mean, he made golf popular, more popular than it's ever been. I fully acknowledge. I'll never take away from that and his greatness. But people, come on, you got to stop this. This dude has won since the end of the 2013 season. Okay, the end of it. We're now into 2023. This is 9 years we're talking about. This dude has won three tournaments. Three. Okay, three. Not six, not nine, not 10, three. An average golfer who's marginally decent can go on the tour and win three tournaments in 9 years, now going on 10. And now here we are, the Genesis tournament. All you hear about leading up to this, Tiger's going to be in the tournament. Tiger's going to be playing. Tiger's looking pretty good. We think he might actually be able to win this thing, at least place in the top two, top three. And where are we right now? Guy is, as Anthony mentioned, the leaderboard, the gentleman at the top of the board, 1,500. Tiger, I assume, still at 300, 12 shots back. Did he make the cut? Is he advancing to the last day of the tournament? Possibly not. This happens more often than not anymore, folks. So why do you continue to do this? I don't know why society just can't let these types of things go. Bud and I talked about this with Brady and Rogers, and put Aaron on the Raiders, put Brady on the Raiders, put Brady with San Francisco, blah 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. Just because you do that, it's not the quick fix. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't mean that Aaron and Tom are just going to take a team to the Super Bowl. Look how old these people are. Look how old these individuals are. Okay? You and I, we both know, Anthony and I both know, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that are sports savvy would understand that even Tom Brady's beginning to show some signs of slippage. Tampa Bay's not a good football team, but we all know Tom had his problems too. Back to Tiger. We know all the injuries, okay? And I allowed for that. Man probably shouldn't even be playing golf. Probably not. But you know what he should be doing? He should be transitioning to the senior tour. Senior. Like Phil Mickelson. Okay? How about that? How about that? How about he had the common sense to transition out. Bernard Langer, he transitioned out. Greg Norman, he transitioned out. You didn't see Jack Nicholson over there at 47 years of age, just absolutely refusing to acknowledge that he just can't play on the regular tournament anymore. He can't do it. Not at 47. I'm fine if Tiger wants to go out and play all four majors. Hey, you know what? Knock yourself out. You've earned it. You've won multiples. Once you win, you earn the right to go back for a lifetime. That's fine. Go do it. You've earned that right. I don't personally need to see you show up every fourth or fifth tournament fully understanding that, you're going to probably be eliminated or not make the cut after the first day. Is this surprising to anybody? Am I the only person that fully is not surprised by the fact that this man fails to make cuts tournament in, tournament out? But yet ESPN, the Golf Channel, hey, Tiger's looking good. Those practice rounds are looking pretty solid. Really? Really? Last I checked, practice rounds don't count. Never have, never will. Doesn't matter. Just like Brady or Rogers going out on the sideline and throwing passes down the field to some assistant. What's it matter? It's not game time. It's not the real event. And this is all I hear now is just Tiger's going to be there. Tiger's going to show up. Tiger's going to be competitive. And then what does Tiger do? He either fails to make the cut or he's 10, 15, 16, 20 shots off the lead. these aren't even average golfer numbers anymore. This is like almost hat golfing. He's a hat golfer, folks. As a regular tournament participant, he is now officially basically a hat golfer. And you said, Mike, well, he's 200 today. I don't care. I really don't. I don't. One tournament doesn't change anything. I'm telling you, whatever next tournament he opts to participate in, I guarantee the results will be the same. He may finish slightly above even. He might, but he's not going to win it. He's not going to be in the top 5. He's not going to be in the top 10. People, please, please, I beseech you, please stop this. Just stop it. Stop it. ESPN, Golf Channel.
I mean,
top.
So,
please.
I think the thing is with what's going on here with it is, for one, we understand that, and we've seen it with tons of players when they finally give it up. It's hard for them to retire, basically. So for him, necessary, and you're saying there's obviously the senior league for sure, but it's still kind of a retirement thing when they move into that. That's him saying, I can now not compete here. So for me, I think part of it is he's having trouble taking that next step. I mean, it's not necessarily saying it's retirement, but it's hard to take that next step. Which, the other hand, is because of the situations that he was in, the other injuries and stuff like that, him being considered the greatest golfer, one of the greatest, top 2 greatest golfers ever, they try to hype him up. That's what we see. We see that we just see that too often now. It's always, oh, Brady can go and do this again. Well, this year he couldn't, and which is exactly why he is retired now. Same thing with Tiger. He keeps hearing the naysayers, and he thinks he's going to be able to come back and do it. But there's very, very few people that can defeat Father Time, and it's just not going to happen. And it seems like, obviously Brady did it for a long period of time. LeBron has done it for a long period of time. We've seen people be able to do things that for a long period of time, in certain sports. He had his span. I mean, and what he did in his span of playing is insane. It was insane to watch this guy out there do what he was doing. I mean, and you're talking about, if you're looking at his game overall, everything, the guy could do it all. He could drive well. He's hitting fairways well. The guy could putt amazing. He was an amazing putter too. Everything he does, his game was just on point. So I think what it is it's just one of those things that comes down to it, where it's just he's just having a hard time letting go of the game and saying he doesn't want to get that feeling, I have to become a senior player now. And I think that's what it mostly comes down to.
You know what, and like I said, but I'm never going to detract from what he accomplished. He probably is the greatest golfer ever. And even now, as his son transitions into potentially becoming a professional golfer, they both engage in these father-son tournaments. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, that's great. I think whatever sport is, dad, son, mom, daughter, these type of things, put it out there, show it, let people watch. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for viewership. But in part, you also shortchange other individuals that are attempting to establish themselves as the next tier, so to speak. Whether it's intentional or it's not, because someone of Tiger's magnitude is involved in that particular tournament, some of these people are pushed to the side, so to speak. And I disagree with that, because, in all honesty, let's be fair here. I know you're not going to get in front of a camera and say, Bob, but I know Tiger's in the tournament, but let's get real here, Bob. I mean, the dude has no shot. Like, what's that going to do? That's going to kill viewership. It's going to piss off everybody, and you're just going to have problems. It falls on 2 people. One, the one you're talking about. Tiger needs to acknowledge at some point, really now, it should have already been done, in part because of the injuries, in part because the skill set is starting to fade. It's obvious. It's obvious to everybody, apparently, or at least it should be. So it's falling upon Tiger, and it needs to fall upon the networks to say, look, man, I get it, okay? It's Tiger.
Yeah.
But it's not there anymore. We got other guys here, Spieth and Rory, and just a cavalcade of talent that's just looking to make that next step.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You let Tiger sort of dominate. And I'm sorry, you need to move on from this. And it irritates me that this continues to be just a repetitive process. I get it. Let him drift off into the sunset, transition to the senior tour. Honestly, because of his physical injuries, I'm not convinced he can even win on the senior circuit because of those injuries. But Tiger, come on. That's where you need to put your game at. This is what's left for you. Take advantage of it, acknowledge it, appreciate it, take part in the majors, and and if you finish 50th or 60th or whatever, that's fine. You weren't expected to win anyway, but you've earned that right. But quit taking away from all these other tournaments where there are other individuals waiting to set their mark, but they can't necessarily because they're falling in your shadow, and that shadow's gone. It's set. It's over. Move on. Tiger, please, just step aside.
Well, I mean, it is definitely a hot topic on that, for you. I understand why. It makes sense. We have talked about this often, like you said, with certain players that they just keep kind of pushing and pushing and pushing and thinking that there's still enough to enough time for them and that they still can be that player and things like that. So we've seen it often, but I like you said, and I agree with you. I think it's time for him to. It's time for him to go and move on to the senior circuit or whatever. And like you said, it's not necessary. It's not saying golf's done. You're not done playing. You're still out there. You're still getting out there. So
have you looked at the payouts of some of these senior tour events? I mean, they're pretty solid payouts. Tiger, come on, bud.
Well,
just go out there and try to win a couple of these, or at least you might place in the top 10 or 5. I don't know. But these tournaments where you have no shot, you got to move on. Please.
All right. Well, moving on now to which would be my beef of the week. Now, I am actually going to talk about what's going on this weekend.
Oh, I'm right there with you on this one, too.
Which is the All-Star Weekend out here, and I am really not excited and have not been excited for, couldn't even tell you, probably about a good, 7-8 years with the dunk contest. And it's just not what it used to be, Mike. We used to see, Kobe in this. Vince used to be in this. The last guy I remember watching that was really, really great was Zach LaVine. That guy was insane. Excuse me, with his hops and stuff. Obviously, I didn't get to see Jordan's slam dunk contest. Obviously, Kobe was in it. Like I said, Vince Carter's was amazing watching it. You got to see Dominique, you got to see Jordan, you got to see Spud Webb and those guys do those contests. And, kind of going back, and this is even going for me, talking about like even the Vince Carter years stuff, doing that. The dunk contest isn't what it used to be. And this dunk contest is insane. And in my opinion, I think that they shouldn't even be having it anymore. I think the dunk contest should just be taken out of All-Star Weekend. I'm sure they could figure out something else to do with it. Because these guys that are coming in, they're...
You know what they could do, bud? They could play dodgeball.
They could, just like, they do in the NFL and stuff like that. Or, maybe a good, game of flag football with basketball players, since they say basketball players could have been football players then, too. You just do it, too. So, yeah, for me, it's kind of just to that point where it's not fun anymore. None of the top players do it anymore like it used to be. Like I said, you see Jordan, Dominique, Vince, Kobe, all these guys got in it. Now we don't. I mean, you look at these guys, you're like, who are these guys? Who are they playing with? What? I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
No, I do, but I do. Surprisingly, and you talked about the ones that I haven't. I was privileged to see. I'll put it that way. Your dad too, that type of thing. Obviously, I really recall, Dr. J, winning the first slam dunk in Denver, Colorado. I don't. Your dad does, but I don't. But if you look at the old videotape, at that particular point in time, those dunks were phenomenal. People had never seen, individuals do those type of things. It defied, gravity. Yeah. That's what was exciting about it. People didn't realize a physical body could do stuff like that. But if you look back at what, players like Dr. J did, and even, I'm telling you, but even Jordan, when he first entered into the competition along with Dominique, if you compared it to dunks 10, 15 years later, their dunks in some degrees were somewhat simplistic. They really were. Even Dominique's tomahawk dunk. I mean, when you saw it for the first time, it wasn't so much the dunk itself, it was the power that he attached to the
Yeah,
dunk that just blew you away. I mean, the rim rattles, and it's just the force of the dunk. They're just like, that's insane. That somebody can just drive a basketball like that. Jordan coming off the free throw line, and just dunking a basketball, that type of elevation from a guy. You didn't, I mean, most people can't even jump vertically 3 feet in the air, and this dude is going, from free throw line to the rim in the air,
yeah,
and you're just like, this
yeah.
is freaking insane. But and it progressed to a point by the mid '90s. Dunks were pretty spectacular. Guys are jumping over cars. Guys are grabbing basketballs off the top of guys' heads, and they're doing two-handed dunks and basketballs in each hand. And literally Vince Carter's. It should have been called the Vince Carter Dunkathon is what it should have been called, because I still think this guy, as a body of work, I thought Vince Carter may have had the greatest collection of dunks from somebody I've ever seen in my
Oh,
entire life.
I agree. I
I
think Vince
personally
Carter, in
think,
my opinion, is actually the best slam dunk contest winner, in my opinion.
I'll tell you what, but Levine was
Levine
pretty
is great.
spectacular.
Levine was great. I think
That's
if I had to
creativity.
throw some names out there, obviously that I got to see, it would be Levine, Vince,
Yeah,
Jason Richardson was actually pretty exciting to
was
watch
good.
in there too, at one point. It was even crazy when Brent Barry got into it too, and he did it,
Yeah,
and he was actually pretty good. That guy, he was getting up. Brent Barry really got it, could
yeah,
get up. It's
yeah.
just like you said, the extra props coming out for me, and seeing things that people think are exciting, which really aren't, and some of these they're going nuts on the crowd. That's the other thing. These guys going crazy on the sidelines, like it's like the greatest dunk ever, and this and that. And it's like, stop. You guys know that nothing was tremendous about that. You know what it is? You know what it was? You know what these guys do this for? And this is why it's just the reason these guys just do this, and it's not these star players anymore. These guys want to get paid. It's you're getting
Of
paid
course they do.
for to do this. So it's like, hey, just throw my name out there. I could dunk a ball. I could come up with something. I could spin a little bit, and hopefully, if I do, guess what? I'm getting paid.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys, I mean, and to your point, there's only so much that you can do with from the physical aspect of the dunk itself, and that's why you have to come up with the props, because it could buffer the fact that your dunk wasn't so much original. It's just their creativity now attached to it with props and whatnot. May have, I took it as kind of like detracting from the fact that you can't really be a successful dunker, so to speak, just on your own ability. You've got to bring in these props and whatnot. So everybody did. Dwight Howard coming out of the phone booth, pulling open his little Superman outfit and stuff like that, and all this other stuff, and those type of things. And again, to your point, I begin to notice that the people that were winning the dunk competition, if you really truly stepped away from what they did with the dunk competition, they weren't really much of a basketball player in a number of instances. Now, obviously, we're excluding the Vince Carters and the Dominiques and blah, 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 blah. I get it. A lot of these guys really didn't go on to have very successful basketball careers. They really didn't. And still, if you look at where it's at now, and to be honest, folks, and Anthony will tell you, he's probably right there with me. Do you really watch a lot of these things anymore? I don't watch them live. I may go back and watch the video repeat,
Yeah,
so
I
I don't
mean,
have to go through all the ridiculousness attached to it.
I'm not somebody that watches it live. Honestly, like I've told you, and I've told other people before, is the only thing I'll throw on All Star Weekend for is the 3-point contest. That's the only thing I really care for. I think the 3-point
Yeah,
contest is still fun to watch. It's exciting. It involves skills for sure, because you got to be able to keep the stamina. You got to be able to shoot. You know what I mean? So it's always fun to watch. It gets exciting with those guys. You could tell they have fun doing it. And that's the other thing. Like you don't see the fun in the dunk contest anymore. Like the guys that are actually doing it, they're just going up there and just. I remember when when watching I'm gonna just keep going back to him, but watching Vince Carter's dunk contest, sticking his arm in the rim, and like it goes back to what you were saying, Mike, how hard you could throw it down, and this that. Not only could he throw it down hard, but he could fly too. Like the guy had some hops, and he could stay up there, which was, so exciting to see too. And it's not what it used to be, and I think honestly, in my opinion, it would just be better if they just completely took out the dunk contest.
You know what I thought was interesting about it, and this goes back to the Dominique Michael dunk competition, right? And I watched this live, and I personally, Jordan had some, I mean, folks, if there are any two people on this planet that will fight to the ends of the earth to tell you who is the best basketball player in the history of the game, you're looking at those two people right here. Michael Jordan, bar none, nobody else. That's it. Don't argue with this. You're not going to get anywhere. That's the end of the discussion. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever. Okay? I say that with so much sincerity, you can't even imagine. That being said, I watched the dunk competition. It originated from Chicago. I personally thought Dominique actually won that competition. His dunks were spectacular. Jordan had more flair, but I thought Dominique had a little bit more creativity. And I think the reason Dominique lost that competition is because it was in Chicago.
Yeah. Yep.
I get it. I get it. I get it. You want the hometown or at least the home team guy to win. And Jordan's dunks were spectacular. But I thought the creativity from Nick and the force of his dunks was just off the charts. I really thought Nick won the competition. But it's Jordan. I mean, I'm not going to ultimately argue. I love Jordan.
Yeah. Right.
But I really do. But it is. It's like you mentioned, even to the All Star game itself. It's like we see in football. It's to the point that you had to come up with a flag football game because the game itself had become so pathetic. Back in the day when Bird and Barkley and all these guys are playing in the All Star games, these guys took this stuff seriously. It was a pride factor. You got paid for it, yeah, but you wanted to win. And you weren't winning once, 710 to 700. I mean, these were tight fought basketball games because these guys took pride in wanting to walk out of there saying, our conference is better than yours. We beat your backside today because we're the better conference, and that's just not there anymore. And so everything just goes hand in hand from that to this celebrity all-star thing last night I told you about with introducing people that I didn't know these people were celebrities. I'm like, I don't know who these people are. You've introduced 12 people, and I only know 3 of them.
You're preaching to the choir here. I'm in the same boat with you. I mean, I totally am not happy with All Star Weekend. I really never pay attention to the hockey anymore. Obviously, like I said, football. We've talked about this before. I'm done with football. I didn't pay attention to one thing that was happening on that. And then NBA. It's just 3-point contest for me now. But I'll still obviously enjoy baseball. I still home run derbies. Whether changing that up when they did, kind of making it against 1 versus 8 seeds type thing. I kind of just liked it what it used to be where they just let 8 contestants go and you just hit and hit and hit until you got your 10 outs type thing. No time limits and stuff like that. Just let these guys put on a show. I used to love when they let do that, so I kind of hated when they switched to that. But of course, MLB has all their rules that they want to change now, which is actually going to lead us into this next segment here, which we're going to start talking about the changing of the MLB rules that are coming up for this year. And, as you guys see here on the screen, I kind of put some of the stuff up here that kind of the stuff that's basically the main things that are getting changed out here. Obviously, starting with the pitch time. They're going to get 15 seconds with bases empty and 20 seconds with runners on. Mike, I feel like this could really, really change some things for these pitchers who already have, basically their own routine that they do. And if their routine isn't within that 15 or 20 seconds, there's going to be a lot of controversy, I think, going on with this.
Oh, but you see, and I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not a purist of baseball. I know obviously you take exception to a part of. You played all the way through high school. I did little league stuff. You played through high school. I look at what they're attempting to do, and I look at how long baseball games typically take right now. So I tend to understand a little bit more, I guess, about the fact. I like that in my opinion, they're forcing, not only the pitcher, you're talking about the runners, the pitchers, the managers, you're going to have to think a little bit more. You're going to have to be a little bit more analytical. You're really going to have to look at how you strategize these situations. In addition to what you're talking about, so when a batter comes up, and you've got your 30 seconds, from batter to batter, you got to be in the box. You got to be, as they say, alert. By alert, folks, they mean you got to have your feet set. You got to have your face looking at the pitcher. You got to be ready to go in 30 seconds. So for the batters, if you're not in that box by 8 seconds, with
Yep.
8 seconds left on the count, then guess what? That's a strike against you. Okay? Pitcher, flip side. You got your time, 20 seconds, and you got your 15 seconds. If you're not launching that first pitch, guess what? That's a ball. So you got to start thinking about these things. And I actually think it actually works pretty well. Now they say, well, how are the umpires monitoring this? Well, it works two ways. There's a person, apparently, if I'm not mistaken, that they can defer to, but they also have a device attached to them that sort of, I guess, if I understand it correctly, it'll vibrate and it'll let the umpire know exactly kind of where they're at and if they've run past their allotted time. So they're very aware of this. I think it again, it lends to the idea that you're going to have to look to strategize. You're really what's going on, and you're going to have to apply it, accordingly. In addition to that, another aspect of what I like is where now with pitchers, and this applies to, if a guy gets on first base, and it's per runner. So as long as that team is batting in that half of the inning, so a guy on first base, we've seen this over the years, the decades, pitcher back and forth, back, pitch to first base, trying to get the guy out. This can go on almost endlessly, it seems like at times. Well, what I think could be really interesting going forward, particularly as we start this season, now a pitcher per batter, per runner, per base runner, 2 pitches to first base initially, okay? Just as we've always seen it. Gets back to first, you're safe. Back to first, you're safe. Third pitch. If the pitcher opts to go to first base with another throw to first base, you better make the pitch count, or you better make the throw count, because if he doesn't, batter automatically, or the runner automatically goes to second base. So it's essentially it's a balk. I like that. I like that a lot. I think what it also forces a pitcher to do, now we're talking situational baseball, and this is to the advantage of the runner, because the runner now will know if he can bait that pitcher into 3 throws to first base, he's got him set up for the third. Pitcher's got to start thinking, okay, so if that guy gets a good lead, guy's got to start thinking, he's got to start thinking, man, do I do it? Do I do it? Because if I don't get him, it's an automatic free trip. Or can I do it? Runner's thinking, go for it, because I'm free and clear here. I can either run, or I can force you to see what you do. I think this is a full advantage to the runner. I think it's really going to increase potential steals. I think it's going to make it a little bit more exciting, put teams in better scoring position, potentially, I guess you could say, potentially higher scoring ball games. But I really think it's going to put a lot of onus on the pitcher to think about what they're doing.
See, and for me, I am so totally against all of this. You're ruining the game that I love, with all this, extra rules, extra stuff. Now I get people want to just slow down the game, or they think the game is too slow now, which the game's never really changed much. Until these rules, so what? That's just the game of baseball. That it's all about strategy. This game is about strategy. This game is all about, who could do what better. And the other thing is there's great catchers out there that are gonna start getting looked at as not being great catchers, because they're not gonna be throwing out a whole lot of players because of these rules and things like that. So a pitcher might think too much over, hey, I don't want to throw it over to first too often, because then they're gonna be able to just take a base if I don't get them out or whatever. So yes, it's going to let these guys get more extended on their leadoffs, which then gives them a better chance to get to second base, which doesn't give the catchers opportunities to throw them out. So these top-tier catchers that are used to throwing players out when the rules were exactly how they should be, the way that they were before, they're not going to get that notoriety anymore, because of the fact that how are you supposed to throw somebody out when they're already halfway down the line and you can't do nothing about it, because if you throw it over there, you can't get them out. Or if you do, or if you throw it over there and you don't get them out, they get the base anyways. I think that is just ridiculous.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about the extra inning, the run rule?
I don't like it. This is professional sports. It's professional sport. I mean, that's like saying, okay, if they go into overtime in basketball, each team gets one guy at the end of their baskets, and if you can knock it all the way down to him, it's an easy layup.
Yeah,
The
no, yeah,
NFL, you get. We'll just start the game. We'll just start you guys at the 50 in overtime, and you guys got to go. This is ridiculous. You know what I
I
mean?
think
It
see,
makes no sense. Like, why should you get a runner on second base? This is professional sports. Professional sports mean you're at the top of the list. You can't go anywhere further than the MLB. MLB is the top. Okay? That's where you're at. So figure it out. Who cares if the game's long? Who cares if, you throw the ball over there 10 times or something like that? It's all strategy. You're getting into your head. Pretty soon that runner's either just going to get tired of doing it and his lead's not going to extend very much, so then you can get the game going again, get the guy out, or he's going to be he's going to get a little too cocky thinking he's going to get away with it, then you throw him out. That's just the way the game's been. And I don't like the rule changes.
yeah,
I don't like anything going on. Keep the game the way it's been. It's been like this for years on years on years. And there's never been a problem with it until now. For what? For what reason? Just to make the game a little bit faster? Really?
I'll tell you what, and I'll get to the one of the next rules in a second. But going back to see it for me, but I kind of like it. I think it's again, it goes back to it's forcing people to think a little bit more. The one thing I don't like about the runner rule is it kind of goes back to what we used to see in overtime before the Buffalo Kansas City game, where one side, touchdown,
Yeah,
field goal, blah
that
blah blah. You
too.
know what I'm talking about. The one thing I would argue in regards to the runner rule is really okay. So Toronto's playing Kansas City. Toronto's got a guy on second. We got the runner rule in place. Sure enough, Toronto scores basically, and if it's in Toronto, game over because they're the home team. So this is the bottom. If you're gonna approach it with that type of setup, then really you're gonna have to be fair here, and you're gonna have to allow the other team their opportunity to do the same thing. Because back to your point, I guess a person could say it's cheating the game, it's changing the rule. I get that. Like I said, I think it can make it sort of a little more exciting, a little more. We got to think about what we're doing here. But if you can do that, then you've got to be fair and you've got to allow the other team one opportunity at least to be put in the same position because you're
And
shortchanging
the other
them
thing that
essentially.
I didn't like, and then like I brought up, these players, whether it be in any sport, they have routines. And especially in baseball, you always notice there's a routine when you come to the plate. So think about a person like Nomar Garciaparra. We all remember the whole wrist, back, forth, boom, knock, knock, knock. Okay, so now you're telling me Nomar's thing probably took how long to get in? By the time he got into into the batter's box, dug in, this and that, he's already getting two strikes on him by the time he's getting out in his first round. How are you supposed to tell somebody now you got to change your whole routine that you've been doing your whole entire life that's been working well for you? That you have to change that up because they just want to see the game just a little bit faster. That makes no sense. No,
Yeah,
I'm saying if this thing obviously took, they're showing signs that the games are getting dropped down by 45 minutes to an hour, things like that. Okay, cool, maybe. But you're talking, what are they saying? It's like they shortened minor league games by 25 minutes? Really? 25
yeah. The
minutes?
average game, yeah, the average game right now is 2 hours 43 minutes. They shortened it by 21 minutes. So yeah, you're pretty much on point, bud.
That's not even like a TV show. That's not even, you could watch your TV, half an hour
Well,
TV shows
it is a
and
TV
stuff
show
like that.
minus the commercials.
Yeah, I mean, cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I
don't know
just
about
don't get it. I don't get it at all. You know what I mean? I don't like it. It doesn't make
I
any
think
sense to
the
me. They're ruining the game that I love and enjoy watching play.
and you know what I think it is too with baseball, bud, is baseball of all four sports, baseball is the most traditional.
Yeah.
It goes back the furthest. It's had the longest standing established rules per se. So I understand that's where the purists and the traditionalists come in, and they hate to see those changes. Like I said, I like seeing where the potential for the changes could go, or at least allow for the opportunity to see what it does to the game, how much does it potentially affect it, negatively, positively. So I'm curious personally just to see how it does. For the moment, I'm endorsing it. I just want to see, to your point, I'd like to see how the players do adjust. We know the great ones will adjust because they're great baseball players. I think this is where we fall into the middle of the road athletes, so to speak, on the roster. Those guys, will they adjust? Will this make them better? Will it make them worse? That type of thing. We know the greats will adjust. But let's see what happens with the middle of the line athlete, the middle of the line roster player. Let's see what they do. I think the pitching is going to be. I tell you what, when you talk about, let's use the Rockies as an example with an absolutely challenged rotation year in and year out, top to bottom. How do guys that already challenge this pitchers outright? How do these guys approach changes like that? It'll be interesting to see. But that leads me to the next rule, and this is the one because you obviously were involved all the way through high school. Like I said, I did the little league thing, so I don't really put that into play. But with you in the high school background, so when we're talking about those
The shift
uh,
restrictions
yeah,
is what they
shift
got.
defensive restrictions, I'm very curious about what your thoughts were going to be on this. I'm just going to let you run with this
So
though.
here, so my thoughts on the shift, in my opinion, was I didn't have really any problems when they started doing it. In my
Really,
opinion, I thought you're at a disadvantage by doing it because it's like,
really.
why would you want to move all your players to one side and leave the whole entire other field open? Now you know me, whether it had been baseball or softball, I will put the ball wherever you're not. So for
Well, you
me,
know what? You know
so
what, Bud? Real quick. One of the reasons they were looking at this is because with the allowance of the shift change, it's really ERAs have taken a massive
well, yeah,
hit
but so that's
because
why I'm
they
getting to
hit
my point here is I didn't
because
care about either one because it's like if you're that way, then as a professional, and this is what really, was really mind-boggling to me. As a professional player, I never understood how you still would hit into that damn shift. You know, I get everybody knows their tendencies, that's why they get in that way. Okay, when you found out that the shift was allowed to be played, if I was somebody that was a pull hitter, I would be working with my hitting coach and say, teach me how I can, whatever I got to do to start becoming a push hitter. What do I got to do? I got to be waiting a little longer. Is it something where I got to adjust my feet a little bit better? Because I'll tell you what, you're giving me that whole entire side of the field open like that. You should be able to figure out how to get that ball into whether it be left or right field and hit these gaps like that when you're in there. Now, the other thing for me, why I didn't like it, I feel like, once again, Major League Baseball. For as the fielder's point, you should be able to play your position no matter what. If you're a second baseman, you play your second baseman at first base, short, whatever you're at, you play that position to the best of your ability. When that ball gets hit to you, you make the play or you don't make the play. You shouldn't be having to shift all the way over there like that, cover
right,
what
completely.
second base and shortstop covering shortstop's area and third base. This and that. No, you are at the major league level. Just get up there, play your position straight up. You shouldn't have to worry about shifting on these guys. You should be able to make any plays. And if you don't make a play, so what? Everybody has errors. Everybody misses a ball. You just get right back up and you go to the next batter. Say, oh well. You know what I mean? The shift for me was, one of those where I hated it both ways. Like I said, I hated it when they did it because of there, but I also hated it because I couldn't understand why batters could not go the opposite way. Like I said, if it was me, I would be going in there practicing, figuring out how to hit where they're not putting players at. Coach, get me in
So
here and
basically,
help me out.
so right now, if Anthony was playing for any major league ball club, and they come up to Anthony and they say, "Hey, so what's your thoughts on the shift?" and then making it illegal, Anthony's going to say, "I don't care. We need to be able to, as professional ball players, we need to be able to adjust to that anyway. We shouldn't
Exactly.
have
We
had this
should.
excuse in the first
That's
place."
exactly what it
I
should
like
be.
that, but
That's
I like
exactly what it
that.
should be. You know what I mean? You do that in slow pitch softball and things like that. You could do things like that, at little league level and things like that. When these kids, they just hit the heck out of the ball, or whatever. You do things like that, and they're all pulls. You're not teaching them to push or something. This is the major league level. You should be able
Yeah.
to figure out how to adjust your batting stance, how to adjust your, whether you just need to wait a second longer, um, you know, push a little bit earlier, whatever you need to do, you should be able to do that and adjust either way, whether you're out on the field or whether you're up to bat. I think you should be able to adjust no matter what.
Yeah, they're also going to increase the size of the bases from 15 inches to 18 inches.
Yep.
What do you feel about that?
Actually, this one is kind of for me. This is one of them that I'm not too upset about because I understand the safety of it. Where those bases were small, you look at some of these guys nowadays, Mike. I mean, these guys playing first base, and you're talking like an Aaron Judge running down. You're talking about two guys that are probably at least 6'3", 6'4", at first base, coming up against Judge who's 6'7". These guys are wearing size 13, 14, cleats, both of them trying to get their feet on the base. One of them accidentally cleats the other, whatever. You're trying to take away from that portion of it, trying to make sure that they're all safe. I have no problems with this at all,
Also,
on that.
yeah, and I agree with you too, but if nothing else, from just a player safety standpoint, crowding the plate, getting run into,
Yeah.
stepping on toes, that type of thing. Um, they suggest that it could also potentially increase the number of steals. I guess I can see that thought process. A wider base, easier to, obviously reach into a wider base as opposed to 15 inches. I get that. We'll see how that plays out. But bottom line, like you're talking about, the player safety, I agree with that completely. Probably should have been done, I don't know, a few years ago, but at least it's being done. Another thing I wanted to ask you about too is, um, and I really hadn't thought that much about this until I started looking at a few things. But what do you think about position player pitching?
I don't have any problems with it. I don't. I mean, I think that it's perfectly fine with me. I mean, you're talking about like the Otanis and things like that itself. I, I don't see anything wrong with it. He had a tremendous season. I mean, I get that it's probably going to take a toll on these guys after a while because when you're having to try to hit the way you do, and you're also trying to, pitch as much and pitch very, very well, it's going to take a toll on you in your career later on. But I mean, I don't have any problems with it whatsoever.
Well, I know that the gist of why they implemented this particular change is in part, again, we're talking about length of games and things like that. Last year, 7 games extended beyond 13 innings, 7 games.
Hmm.
2019, what was it? 132 games extended beyond 13 innings. So I see the reduction in time on that. What I wanted to ask you about too, and I didn't know if you were aware of this or not. So as we go forward with this, and as they're looking to address position player changes. So any team leading by 10 runs in the ninth inning will be able to implement a pitching change, player position change, positional change.
Okay.
A team trailing by at least 8 runs at any point in a game can then implement positional, player pitching. And obviously, if we go into extra innings, we get it. Everything's off the table. You just throw them out there and do what you got to do because we're now in the extra innings and you're burning through pitchers. Um, 10 runs in the ninth inning to me is sort of neither here nor there. I mean, the game's over anyway. I don't know.
Once again,
I,
for me, I think all this just goes back to, like I said before, this is the MLBs. This is the Major League Baseball league. Figure it out.
yeah.
If you guys get rocked that game, you get rocked that game. So what? I mean, that comes down on you got to figure it out. Is it your pitchers or is that your pitching coach that's allowing you to give that up? You know what I mean? It's
But here's the point too, and we talked about this. And let's put all of this aside, all the rule changes. Let's just talk about this for just a quick segment. And I'm not knocking on pitchers. I know it's a tough deal. I know our arms are stressed. Tommy John, the whole bit.
tell Cy Young that. Tell
Well, there
Nolan
you go.
Ryan that.
That's my point.
I
Right?
mean, what do you mean your arms are tired?
Where were these guys back in the 30s and 40s that were pitching and hitting?
Well, look at Babe Ruth. He did.
That's
He
what I'm
did
talking
both.
about.
He did both.
What
Everything. He did everything.
what have we done? What have we done to athletes across the board? We've got basketball players now, with workload, with load management. We got baseball pitchers who can't go 6 innings, because they're on a pitch count. And I
No,
look at
it's
this stuff and I'm
ridiculous.
just like, have we just man? I mean, you might want to start thinking about passing out some pacifiers because this is almost beyond. I mean, we might need to break out the pacifiers and some diapers and powder some bottoms
I
and
mean,
just
you're
mollycoddle
you're
this.
thinking about like guys like Cy Young and Babe Ruth. I mean, guys like that. Cy Young would pitch, every third day or something like that, whatever it be. Maybe he might even pitch every other day or something like that. And these guys never complained about it. They went out there and they did their job out there.
Yeah, and everybody's going to say, "Oh, well, Anthony and Mike are only talking about." See, here they go. They're talking about Babe Ruth. They're talking about Cy Young. They're only talking about the Hall of Famers. No, folks, we're talking about any pitcher
Any of those
that
pitchers
pitched
in those
back in
eras
the
did
day.
that. They all did
They were
it. They had
the
it. They didn't have a
same
choice.
thing. They just didn't happen to have the talent that those guys had, but they were still out there dealing with the same situations that the superstars were dealing with, and they didn't complain about it. They just went about their business.
And and,
They were
and
good.
it's not even just that back of the air. You're still talking about guys that could do it. Coming into the '90s and stuff. Well, Greg Maddux, Randy Johnson, those guys, they all did it. They
Yeah,
they were kind of still in the era when they did have a rotation. But I'll tell you what, if you ever had to put somebody, if they were to go in there and play on maybe like 3 days rest, I guarantee they would have did it.
of course they would.
And this like and it just gets annoying to see things like that. You know what I mean?
It
And
does, but
and to hear, oh
and
well,
it's like,
I gotta have my 5 day rest before I can go in there. They can't do. Madison Bumgarner was actually one of those guys that really kind of was implicating those old school style stuff when playing with the Giants during his prime. Pitching, he coming in relief after he had just pitched a complete game in the World Series and stuff like that. He was that old school type of player. To do something like that.
this cracked me up, but this cracked me up because we didn't talk as much this past week because obviously I was dealing with a few things, but I did happen to see this is NBA. So the Nuggets had a game with the Mavericks, right? And I thought, man, that's probably going to be a great game. It was on altitude, so unless you were in that area, you
Yeah,
weren't going to be able to see it anyway. I come to find out they load management Kyrie.
yeah.
And I'm like, did this guy not just sign with this freaking ball club?
You know,
And you're already doing this? This was a marquee matchup. This game actually had potential playoff implications. And you're not even, the guy hadn't even played what, maybe 1, 2 games? And you're
yeah.
playing the Nuggets and you're not going to have your best lineup. And you guys got blasted. You got blasted. And I don't get stuff like that. And so now, and to my point, so here we got, and this is just how comical sports is becoming. So the World Baseball Classic is going to be taking place again this year for the first time since 2017.
Yeah.
And obviously the U.S. is going to be there. They're going to be there with in their division. They're going to be with Mexico. What was it? Canada, Great Britain, and Colombia. Colombia is the other one. So that's their group.
Okay.
And two will be moved from that group as they progress. And here's Kershaw. He was going to play.
Yeah, I heard he was going to, and then I guess he couldn't or something.
Because he can't get the insurance.
Oh my.
You have to be insured to play in the game. I get it, but he can't get that. And as he said, he's 35 years old. This is probably be his last one, and now he's not going to be in it. He doesn't give a crap. He's played in it before, but I'm just like, so you can't figure out a way to get the man insurance. The dude wants to play in the game, so why don't you figure it out? Is that what we do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess it's.
Freaking mind.
I guess so.
I mean, how many times did you go out, playing basketball or baseball for the high school, buddy? You're like, hey, hold on a second now. I just played 2 games. You gotta give me, you gotta spot me some rest here. I gotta take a break.
Yeah. No, I mean exactly. It's rough, and that's kind of one of those things that athletes, they really get hit out hard for is taking this time off. But on top of that, you're making all this money too to be doing it, to go out there, and people spend their hard-earned money to go and watch you too, and when they spend that
Yeah.
money to go sit there and they find out that you're not playing, that hurts. That hurts people a lot. When
Yes, and
it's like you never know. I mean, that could have been a first time for somebody that may not get a chance to go see you again, type stuff. So you always got to, and I'm sure that's probably not in their mindsets. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Obviously, I know their number one, job first is to think about their team, be a teammate, try to win a championship. Obviously, that's first, but in the end, if you don't have those fans there, there's nobody there to, help with your salaries and help with all that other stuff if you can't fill those seats. So,
Yeah.
but, so we'll see how the rules change. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on
So
it,
bottom
see
line,
if it changes
you're
everything.
opposed.
What?
Yeah, bottom line, you're basically opposed to everything.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wanting to see where it goes. I kind of like to see maybe it adds a little bit more excitement. Time frame, who knows? But I'm just curious to see if it makes the game a little bit more exciting,
Yeah.
makes players think a little bit more. So let's just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give it a chance. Obviously, I love the game of baseball, and I'll watch it. And if it does actually make it seem like it's a lot better, and definitely the good changes, I'll bite my tongue and say, hey, I was wrong. But we'll keep an eye on it, see what it's like come season
Definitely.
starts. Moving on, we're gonna go into our last topic here. We're gonna get into some college basketball now, Mike. This is we've talked about it briefly. We haven't really got as in depth as we'd like to with it, but man, this is one of the most craziest seasons in college basketball that I can think of.
But
Maybe in my
right now,
entire lifetime.
as you and I are talking right now, there is only one team in the top 25 with only 2 losses. One.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be Houston up
Yeah,
there.
in Florida, oh crap, I can't think of the name right now. They were 25th coming in. They lost today. They had 3 losses coming in today. They lost today, so they got 4. Houston right now sitting as the only team
Yeah,
with 2 losses in the entire top 25.
they are
I don't
definitely.
think I've ever seen that.
You're right, and you usually get somebody up there that either can try to go undefeated or at least gets that one loss or something like that. But looking at this at least the top 10 that I was kind of looking at, you're talking about like Kansas and Texas are both in the top 10 who have 5 and 6 losses.
Yeah.
Tennessee's right there. Tennessee and Baylor are at the bottom of the list there with 6, 7 losses. But on top of that, Baylor, in my opinion, is one of the hottest teams coming up right now.
Well, no, no, let's
In their last 10, they're 9-1 with just their loss to Texas. Who Texas is in the top 10.
Yeah, and let's look at Purdue. As we talked about just briefly before we got on, here's Purdue, who I thought just a few weeks ago when we got on, I talked about Purdue. From a roster standpoint, that's a solid ball club from 1 to 12.
Yeah.
Basically, this is a solid group. They've now lost 3 of their last 4. They play Ohio State tomorrow. They'll probably get by them, but they've lost 3 of their last 4. If they lose to Ohio State, they'll have lost 4 of their last
And
5.
the other thing that's crazy about the last 4, the 3 losses are to teams that are just subpar. Because you're talking about Indiana, you're talking about Northwestern, and
But
Maryland.
but you know what's interesting though? Those are conference teams. So what does that say about potentially
Exactly.
what they
That's
have
the other thing
in their
is that I was going to
tournaments?
bring up
In their
is,
tournament.
and I always bring this up because it always happens, and I brought this up during the playoffs too, Mike. When it comes to your conference, games are a whole lot different, and that's what
Yeah.
it seems to be like this year. Is the conferences are really just beating up each other. They're beating each other up in these conferences. If you really look at
But
it,
but you look at now, the Pac-12 is a little bit weak when it comes to basketball. At least they are this year. I mean, we've got Arizona, we've got UCLA. It's probably the only real 2 standouts. USC is a pretty good ball club, but the top 2, USC, Arizona. What happens in their tournament, I don't know. But ultimately, a number of teams aren't going to come out of that conference. At least probably 2 solid teams, and those 2 right there. But if you look at the Big 12, we got 6 teams in the top 25 right now, and you just talked about a couple of them. Kansas is making a move now, as you talked about. And with Texas, and some solid ball clubs. Alabama recently went number 1, lost immediately after. Immediately the next game they lost. So
number
they'll
one
lose
seeds are never safe right now. That's literally what it is.
no, no,
If
tell
you're
you
a
what's
number
going to
one
happen.
seed, you're
I'm glad
not
you bring
safe.
this up. I'm glad you bring this up because this is something I wanted to talk about. I'm going to ride this into the ground. I do not, you know how I feel about Houston, and I'm not knocking on the Cougars. If you're out there, folks, and you're a fan, good for you. Root hard for your team. But I'm telling you right now, I don't buy this team, not for 1 second, and I'm going to explain why I don't buy this team. We do know for a fact, as we just mentioned, this is the team that's only got 12 or 2 losses right now. I get it. 2 of those losses, one was to Temple. It was a road game, I believe. I believe it was a road game. Obviously, they went to Virginia, which was an impressive road win. They won by 9 or 8, I think it was 79-71. Good win for Houston. Problem I have with this team, bud, I'm sorry, and I'm telling you right now, if you look at some of the teams, they played Oregon out of conference. Oregon's a 15-12 basketball team, all right? Temple, team they lost to, 14-13 right now. These are teams you don't lose to if you're going to be number one come Monday. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. I know, as you just mentioned, ones are going down like flies. But look at the conference that Houston is in. And I'm looking at this. The best teams right now, and I'm going to give you the records and their conference records right now. We're looking at Memphis, 20-6 regular, conference 10-3. Tulane, 16-7 regular, 9-3 conference. Cincy, these are the best three teams aside from Houston. Cincy, 17-10, 8-6. None of them ranked. This is what Houston. This is the conference that Houston plays in. And I don't care. You can go. We can all go back to the Virginia game, and I give Houston props for winning that game. And they're a talented ball club. They are. And I'm not necessarily opposed to them being ranked number one because they do only have 2 losses. But I fully believe once the once the tournament starts, and I do believe Houston will run the rest of the season table. They'll go into their conference tournament ranked number one. They'll probably come out of their tournament ranked number one. They'll grab a 1 seed. I look at UCLA as a potential 1. Houston as a potential 1. I still think Purdue can lock down a potential 1. Watch for Kansas to be a potential number 1. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Kansas because once you get to that tournament like you're talking about, bud, when you've got Kansas State and you've got Texas and these type of teams in there, Kansas winning their tournament is not a lock. And UCLA is going to be there too.
Yeah, I agree.
But I really believe with Houston, depending on how they bracket, if it brackets the way I think it's going to, they'll make it to the 8, and it's at the 8 is where they're going to hit the roadblock. And that's what I'm curious about with Houston.
Yeah, and see, because obviously trying to look at this, I'm trying to debate who I would choose as your solid number ones, obviously. And there's no way you could pick an overall number 1 seed right now. I just can't right now. Obviously, I guess with the loss Alabama, took to Tennessee now, if the season was to end right now, they're going into it, Houston would have to be the number 1 overall seeded, number 1. But like going back to what you're saying, it's not in a tough conference. Houston is kind of reminding me of Gonzaga now, where Gonzaga wasn't they're not in a great conference. They're not things like that.
St. Mary's come tournament time.
Exactly. So
their conference tournament.
And I'm not saying Gonzaga's a terrible team. I think Mark Few's a great coach. He's always had great recruitments, great teams, this and that. Not knocking Gonzaga at all, but they don't have a lot of national championships to show for, do they now? When they're always becoming a number 1 seed, they've had number 1 overall seeds. They don't have a lot to show for that. So Houston's kind of making me think that they're that same type of team right there. Now, I'm not putting my money on Houston. If somebody's telling me, you got to put your money on a team to win it all, they're not going to be up there. I'm still going with a Bama, a Purdue, a UCLA type team. Even Baylor, like I said, Baylor is on the way up. If you're looking at these top teams, the two that are really, on the up and coming is Virginia and Baylor. They're both 9-1 in their last 10. And they both lost to teams that were in their conference anyways. They lost to Virginia Tech, and Baylor lost to Texas. But if you look at all these teams anyways in the top 10, they all have bad losses.
And I'll tell you what, bud, with Virginia, come ACC tournament time, you better watch for Pittsburgh. You better watch for Clemson.
And that's how all these are, of course, for sure. Miami's definitely another team that's really on the up and coming, and any of these lower teams, like in Arizona, Baylor, Tennessee, those types of teams that are at the bottom, they start losing. Miami's gonna find their way into that top 10 if some of these teams that they start losing. I think Miami is a really good team. But right now, looking at this list, if I had to make my picks on the 4 teams that would probably be in as the 1 seeds, I'm probably sticking with what they have right now as the 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm sticking with Bama, Houston, Purdue, and UCLA.
I'm curious with come tournament time. I'm curious to see what Arizona could potentially do with UCLA. Arizona's got a good basketball team. Good basketball team.
Well, the other thing is what's going to happen to these teams that we're not used to seeing? Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina. Are we going to see any of these teams in the tournament? Are they going to become 8, 9 seeds? We have. This is the craziest thing is we're talking about these teams that you normally don't talk about recently. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because to not look at this list, to not see a Kentucky team, to not see a UNC, to not see a Duke up there, Syracuse, those types of teams, to not see them up there is really, really crazy to me this year. That is just insane that we're not talking about any of these teams being a top-tier team this year.
But you know what I don't want, Bud? And I'm from Carolina. I bleed Carolina blue. You're a Carolina fan. You bleed Carolina blue. Here's my thing, though. Carolina was the preseason number one.
Mm-hmm.
They came in here with all these projections, all this hoopla. They're going to run the table. They're going to be, they're going to be the number one seed in the country when it comes tournament time. And we all know what's happened so far. So to your point, as we talked about, right now they're projecting both of them as basically like an 8, 9 seed, something like that. But what I don't want is don't do this. Don't do the whole blue blood thing. If they're not good enough to be in there, don't just throw them in there just because they need to be put in there because they're Kentucky and they're Carolina and
this is the other thing that I was bringing with how they're obviously lower tier teams, right? But we're talking about how great these other conferences are. So obviously take like a UCLA who's probably in the tournament. Arizona's in the tournament, but USC is not a bad team. USC wins that conference tournament, that's going to knock out a Duke, a North Carolina, a Kentucky team.
Yeah,
but exactly. Then that's what I'm getting to is that North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, those teams, they need to figure it out and they need to go on a run if they want to. They only got about 5 more games left. These teams need to.
Most teams have between 4 and 5 games.
So they need to run the tables so that they can show that they deserve to be there. Because I'll tell you what, if they're playing these subpar games like they've been. When you look at these conferences and you're looking at these teams that, are playing in great divisions or great conferences that don't have ranked teams in there, they can come out and win their conference and knock a team like that out, that's what I'm saying, that they need to figure it out. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves in the NIT.
What do you think of this I kind of struggle with this. Growing up, I thought, okay, that's cool. I get it. I'm all for it. Then there are times I think, nah, that's kind of bogus. I don't know if I really dig on that. So let's just take a random team. Let's say Indiana is going into their Big Ten tournament. Let's say they're 10-17 or whatever they are, right? Or 10-15.
Yeah.
And they're obviously not going anywhere. So they go into the tournament and they win the Big Ten tournament. Automatic bid. I don't know anymore if I really dig on that, because I know what you're saying. They're going to say, well, they got momentum. They won their tournament, so maybe it carries through. Yeah, but it hasn't carried through for an entire season of basketball. They happen to get a hot streak. So you're telling me that you're just going to literally they get voted in kind of because they just won their tournament. And I get it, but that's part of the reason you have it. I understand that. But you're still taking a team that was 10-17. They happen to win their 3 or 4 their own tournament games, and now they're in the tournament. Maybe they win one game, maybe not, but they got in because of it. So I kind of waver on that sometimes. I'm like, I get it, and I don't.
Well, part of it for me is I think
kind of to the point of what if Duke or Carolina do that, bud? What if
they run through the last 4 games, but they run through the tournament and get in? Well, I mean, at that point, why didn't anybody stop them?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's why I kind of wait.
Why didn't Virginia? I mean, Virginia's going to probably be number one, and I mean, I would assume they'd be number one, right? Why didn't they stop any of them when they played them then? Yeah. Or why did they lose to somebody before they got a chance to play them to stop them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it all goes down to, and that's kind of what we talk about with the tournament is you got to be prepared every single time you play because it's one game. It's one game. That's all it is. And that's the thing is I think some of these teams might even be a little nervous of these Dukes and North Carolinas and Kentuckys that aren't succeeding yet right now because tell you what, like you think about some of these teams, if obviously they're gonna, if they do make the tournaments like that, they're getting the lowest they could pretty much get is basically like a 9 probably. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really see a Duke or or Kentucky them giving like a 10. I don't see that. It's obviously not going to happen ever. So 8 to 9 is where it's going to be. So you're telling me, you're going to get a team that, I don't know, like you said, maybe like a, I don't know, like a Virginia Tech, it finds a way. It's just something like that where they are, a team that's good enough to just win their division, to win their conference. And then they got to see a team like North Carolina because it's an 8-9 seed. And that's why sometimes these 8-9s are so hard to pick because it's like, well, if you see UNC's name there, everybody gets nervous. Now, maybe they're not that great, but what if they are? And then they run
Yeah.
through the tournament, like that, because at any point in time, teams as good as Duke, teams as good as Kentucky, teams North, they can still withhold against some of these teams. They can play with these teams. So if
Oh
all
yeah.
they have to do is get to the tournament and stuff like that. But I agree with you on, if you why all of a sudden did you wait till the end of the season to start winning? Obviously,
Yeah.
or as long unless I seen progression. Like the season just started off completely bad. You just got better as you went. Coaching came into play. Fine, you just got better as you went. But like you said, for North Carolina, they came in as ranked as the number one seed, and why shouldn't they have been? They didn't lose anybody. They brought everybody back. Baycott came back for this reason. They
I know.
kept Caleb Love there. So why wouldn't you be ranked number one? You should have been. And why are you losing? You
Yep.
got to go. You got to figure this out. I don't understand it because tell you what. After this year, Baycott's gone. He's gone. So you got to get into this tournament again and try to make a run. If not, North Carolina's they're going to be hurting a little bit unless they start getting into that recruitment and people want to start coming playing for North
But
Carolina again. But it's going to be tough. They got to figure out how to get into that tournament somehow, some way.
But you know what, bud? And again, you love Carolina, I love Carolina. We both really like Duke a lot, and I love or State and Wake Forest, blah 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 blah. I really do. As much as I love these teams, I'm really enjoying seeing teams, and I'll even go so far as to say, good for Houston. Props to you. You've got a good team. You are taking advantage of it. You are beating the teams you should beat for the most part. Um, I do enjoy seeing a different collection of teams. You don't. Kansas is there. I get it, but it's not over here. But it's not Kentucky, 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 Louisville, Louisville, Louisville. Duke and Carolina. And so for me, the diehard, bleed blue. It's nice to see different teams having an opportunity to do something. It just is.
Well,
That's why I like to see St. Mary's.
I'm
You
glad you
know,
like it
right
because
to Gonzaga.
I'm glad you like seeing this because I'm not for it. I do not like any of these teams really that are in this top 10
I
other
don't
than
like it
Bama.
either, but
And
it
it's
makes it
not for
more
me.
exciting.
I don't. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to college, I'm kind of set my own ways with the teams that I enjoy, with teams that I just don't like. I can kind of get a little bit more open when it comes to the major sports with watching other teams. When it comes to college, for me, I mean, I'm set in my way. I don't like. I mean, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I look at this top 10 list, and Alabama's the only team that I can stand on the list. I mean, it's serious, and we've talked about this too. I could be a UCLA fan if Bill Walton didn't go there, or if they would actually just get him off the damn TV when he's there.
I'll tell
Because
you
I
what,
can't
bud.
watch anything that has to do with UCLA and him there. I love him. I love him with having Kareem go there, whatever. Reggie Miller, that's my boy, stuff like that. But Bill Walton screws UCLA for me. I'll tell you that right now. But looking at this top 10 list, I don't like any of them at all. I mean, I wouldn't root for any of them at all, other than Bama.
But
That's
I'll
the
tell
only
you
one.
what, if sometimes I think to myself, if I hear Bill Walton say the words "Conference of Champions" one more time, I'm gonna lose my effing mind. I can't stand when he does this. And everything is so freaking over the top with this dude, from the referees to the cheerleaders to the court to the fans. It's anything Pac-12 related. It's the greatest thing in the history of sports. Some freshman who's never bounced a basketball on UCLA's court gets out there, and this dude is the second coming of the greatest point guard in the history of UCLA basketball, and possibly all of the history of collegiate basketball. It's just absolutely stupid. And any team that can beat Kansas's backside, I'll root for them. I don't care. I root for Russia if they were playing Kansas. I can't stand. And I'm sorry, folks. You've got a great program. You got a great history. You've earned all your titles. I have no problem with that. But man, I just get sick of Kansas basketball. I
Yeah,
really do.
yeah. Like I said, for
But I like it. But no, I always root for Carolina. I always root for Duke. I hope they get in. I hope they win. I'll never not root for them. But I don't mind seeing, the top five consistent teams we haven't seen in a long time. I just think it makes it a little more exciting.
well,
This is
I
one of
think for me the what'll
the
make
we've
it
ever seen.
well the one I think the thing that'll make it exciting for me is then if I don't like any of these top teams, then I'm going to start, it's going to make me more excited to try to root for these underdogs, the 10 and
Yeah,
under seeds then, the 10 through 16 seeds. I want to pick out a team through there and look at a team and say, hey, whether it be like a Cleveland State that makes it in, a Murray State, those types of teams that go in. So, there's always been those runs like the South Dakota States, teams like those that are fun to watch and enjoy from these other conferences. That's going to kind of be where I'm going to start enjoying it. I'm going to
yep.
pay attention to those teams more than the top seeds are, Obviously, I'm still going to be rooting for Bama to go. They're a top seeded team, and I believe that they deserve a one seed as long as they win out and do what they're supposed to do. They should
I
definitely
think so too,
have
bud.
a chance to be a one seed, and they could even be the number one overall seed if they win out and do what they do. Because I think they're a better team than Houston. I do think that they are a better
I think
team.
so too, bud.
So um,
I would go so far. I really would, bud. If we're talking about that right now, I would pull. I get it. Like I said, they've earned their wins. They've beaten most of the teams they should have
yeah,
beaten. They've got two losses. But here's what I would do. Truly, I just don't think I would probably bump them to five right now, just because I don't think that they've already lost to Alabama. We saw that, and I just don't think could they beat Purdue, UCLA, or Kansas? I don't think they could. I really don't. I really don't. I mean, they're ranked two, so by rule, you go ahead and you bump them to one because they were at two. So you just it's formality. You go ahead and let them have what they're going to get. I think they'll hold that into the tournament. But come the Elite Eight, I think it's going to be a rude awakening for these guys. I really
well,
do.
to be honest, I think Houston kind of has a legitimate chance against Purdue. I mean,
I don't know,
I
but
think
that's
the reason is because how do you all of a sudden just go lose three of your last four? How do you
no,
do?
again, but also look at
But
the competition. Not that the competition they lost to
but
Northwestern
I
and
mean, you're
obviously
talking
they
about
lost
Indiana,
to Maryland.
Northwestern, Maryland. I mean, they're just as good as Temple. I mean,
Oh, I'd
if
put
you're
them
think
above 10.
if you're thinking about no, I'm talking about if you're thinking about conference wise while they're in there, they're about this. That's about even playing like even match team. Purdue playing against Indiana is like Houston playing Temple. So both them losing to those teams are about even. If you get what I'm saying.
No, I get what
So
you're saying.
so it's like I feel like Houston does have they have a. I mean, I think I'd give them a good chance against Purdue because Purdue looks like for some. I don't know what's off with them, but losing three of their last four
I'd
like
say
that, they
what?
just something was off with them. So I think if you're
Well, I'd
talking
say
about them playing right now, if say the tournament was going,
what?
I'd give them a chance. I'd definitely give them a chance over. UCLA is on the up and coming. I think UCLA is a really good team. Their losses recently, obviously they're on a 5-game winning streak now after they had back-to-back losses, but the back-to-back losses, USC and Arizona, another conference. You know what I mean? They're conference losses. So I do think UCLA and Alabama are better than Houston for sure. Purdue, just
Yes.
because of their three of their last four that they lost, and they just look like something's wrong there. I think I put them together with Houston. I don't care what it is. You could put Houston 3, Purdue 4. You could flip flop those. I don't care. But I think UCLA is more of a 2. I think Bama deserves to be that 1. I know they lost Tennessee, but Tennessee is a top 10 team still. I mean, I know they've been struggling themselves a little bit, but their losses have been to conference teams again too. They lost to Vandy, they've lost to Kentucky, 2 of their last 4. They're 2-4 in their last 6. So I know they're down, but I still think Alabama's just that good, and I think they should be the
Oh, I
number
do too,
1. I
bud. I
think
do too.
UCLA should be 2 right now, and then I would say Purdue 3, Houston 4, but Houston still deserves to be in that top 4, which is why I think those would be my if the tournament started now, Bama your number 1 overall, UCLA would be your 2 number 1, your 3 1 would be Purdue, and then my 4th number 1 would be
Watch that
Houston.
Kansas team. Watch that Kansas team.
You know, they are. I mean, any of these teams too. I mean, Texas, like I said, and
Yeah.
like I said, I was still big on Baylor. I still think Baylor has.
Kansas State.
I think they have room to work with. I think Baylor could easily find their
TCU's had a
way.
couple of big wins.
TCU's up there too, but
I mean,
I mean, the thing is like we talked about, they don't have very many games left. Where I
no.
feel like anybody 15 or below. Well, maybe not. Maybe not necessarily 15 because they're 5 games still. At least probably 20 to 25 don't really have a chance. I
Yeah.
give a slight chance from that 15 to 20 range, but right now this is where we're at. These 10, whoever's in the top 10 is kind of where you're sitting to try to push your way up right now. And I think it's between these teams that are right here. You do have these other teams like we talked about Miami, we've talked about TCU, Kansas State definitely on the up and coming also. Um,
But
but
they can really make their statements in their respective conference tournaments,
exactly.
because they're positioned to do that. So if they can just take care of business in their respective conference tournaments, like you're talking about with the Miamis and the Pittsburghs and
Yep.
the Clemsons and blah blah blah, St. Mary's and Gonzaga, that type of thing, that's where you can push yourself forward. I agree with you completely, but once you go above 15, I pretty much I eliminate you.
Yeah.
And actually for the most part, kind of back to your top 12 of NBA all time. I kind of my cutoff can be right around 12, 10 to 12. I mean, because at that point, boy, a lot would have to go right for you to really make a major push. So it has to come in your conference tournaments if you're going to do anything. But I like what you're talking
Exactly.
about right now with what's there, what's actually ranked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you like that because once you get to like this point of the season, if you're that low, that means you've had some bad losses and you haven't been taking care of business like you're supposed to be doing. So you're down that low for a reason. So it's going to be kind of hard to get up there. Now, there's nothing wrong with where you're at. You're top 25. You're making the tournament no matter what. So, I mean, so that's the good part about it. I mean, for the most part, you're probably making the tournament unless
Yeah,
obviously you get
exactly.
your go to the conference tournament, you don't win it, or you don't, things like that. Obviously, we see things happen. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's going to be exciting. It really is. Like I said, even though I'm not a huge fan of these teams, you are right. It
Yeah.
is going to be a lot of excitement for these schools who haven't been up there, as often recently. It's great for them
Absolutely.
and
Almost
stuff like that
almost
too.
absolutely wide open. Almost
It is. Oh
absolutely
no, it's
wide open. But
completely
like you
wide
said
open,
earlier,
Mike.
there's no
It
there's
is.
no
It's
clear
completely
cut number
wide
one
open.
right now.
Yeah, 100%, 100% wide open. I mean, if I had to put in, excuse me, if I had to put a bracket in right now, I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even
I
know how
wouldn't
to do it at all. Have no
no.
clue.
No. And I think that's what makes it exciting. This is gonna be one of the best, I think. If it plays out like it could and should, I think it could be a really memorable tournament.
Yeah,
Not just a 16 or an 8 or a 4, a tournament. I think it's gonna be really good.
definitely,
Really good.
definitely. No, I agree for sure. I agree. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. We enjoyed being back here. This was
We sure
fun.
did.
This was another great episode, I believe, Mike. Anything else that you want to put out there for us that I can't
Uh,
remember or
it's
that we were supposed to talk about or anything like that?
No, I mean, I haven't heard any cop sirens, so I think, at least for me personally, everything is looking pretty good. I always have to listen for that, but I've got radar inside the house, so I kind of know what they're going to show up. But aside from those personal concerns about the authorities, as always, folks, first and foremost, a great appreciation and thank yous to Anthony and for the phenomenal job he does each and every week of getting the show ready and everything he does just with his presentation and just who he is as a person and his knowledge. Just I just my jaw drops with everything you do, but it's just phenomenal,
Well, I appreciate it.
folks. Folks, just as always, thank you for tuning in. As Anthony mentioned, we hope you enjoy what we like to discuss and talk about and debate each and every week because it's just one of our absolute most enjoyable things to do. But as always, again, thank you for your time, your interest, and we hopefully look forward to seeing you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah,
So everyone have a great week,
definitely.
and we
And
see you
like I
then.
said, reach out to us. We always bring this up. Reach out to us for whatever. Let us know what you guys thought of anything that we talked about. If you agree with us, disagree with us, let us know what your guys' thoughts on the MLB changes. Do you
And we
like
know
them?
our
Did you
families
not like
disagree with
them?
us.
Are you guys just neutral about it? College coming up too. Let us know. And if you went to any of these colleges, you're rooting for somebody, you've been a lifelong fan, whatever it may be. Let us know who you're riding with. Like we talked about, our teams are a little bit down right now, but we're still riding with them. Hopefully that they get in. Um,
If you
other
want to talk
than
about axe throwing, if you want to talk about axe throwing, We can do that. I got a tree in the backyard. I can go out there and start learning how to throw and
Oh
toss, and I can at
man.
least hopefully speak on it. We can do
Well,
darts,
just give us
horseshoes.
some time so we can make sure that he warms up, he stretches, he's got to get it down because the last thing we want to
I
do
got,
is he just kind of
hey,
lets this thing fly and then you just hear it hit somebody and his next door neighbor or something like that, and then we're in real big
hey,
trouble.
I reached for a coffee cup the other night. It was on a high shelf. I might have Tommy John. I'm not sure. I'm going to reach out to a physician I should know within a couple of weeks, and then we'll just kind of go from
I think
there.
you need to get on that TB12 method is what you need to do then.
I don't think I can afford it, but
I don't think anybody can afford it. Well, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. We will be back again next week. As long as everything stays good for us, we're going to get back onto our normal time frame, get on track with it,
yes,
doing every single Saturday evening for y'all. Well, once again, thank you, and let us know how everything was, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't. But we look forward to talking to you guys next week, so everybody be safe out there.
good night, everybody.